So here we have PlayStations that are retro compatible, so they should read PlayStation 1, 2 and 3. And the issue on this specific one is that it does not do anything onto the TV. So there's no signal from the console to the TV, although we have a green light always on, and it does not shut down as we usually see, like the yellow light of death. Eject button does nothing as well, and still no signal. So this is one of the consoles that we are going to look at. If we try to insert a CD while it's off, it will come on, but does not receive the CD inside. It's just stuck over here and does absolutely nothing. So this is one of the 3 PlayStations, although the 3rd PlayStation will be a parts console to try and fix the other 2. The power on and off button does nothing as well, so we need to shut it down. So retro compatible PlayStation number 2, it turns on, and the CD will go in, and the console does transmit a signal to the TV, as you can see. It will be needing a new battery because it has no memory, as you can see over here. The date is 2012. So let's connect a controller to it and put this as it should be. The issue with this console, besides needing a new battery, will be that it does not read the CDs if we insert it while it's on. It only recognizes the CDs or DVDs, games, whatever, if it is inserted while it's booting up. So, as you can see over here, we will have the game Spider-Man 3. If I remove the game, which I'm doing right now, and reinserting, it will not recognize the CD again. So we need to turn it off and back on so that it sees the CD. So this is an issue with probably the Blu-ray reader. I don't know. We will need to figure that out. Let's just double check on which version this console is, because this might be important. So 4.11, so it is definitely a jailbreakable. So let's turn it off and back on again, so you can witness that the CD, in this case the Blu-ray, is inside with the game. We will now restart it with the controller already plugged off, and it started, and it will recognize the controller. So everything is working on this console except for that part, which is amazing, as it's a 20-something years old console. As you can see, Spider-Man 3 is over here because it booted with the Blu-ray inside. So let's go and try to fix the first console and the second console, as the third console, a delete was attempted and it ruined the third PlayStation, so I will be using it for parts to fix these two if I manage to. So this console was previously opened. As you can see, we have no screw inside of the warranty sticker, and we also have no disc inside this console. So this will probably reduce our chances of fixing this console by a lot. So let's go ahead and try to open it. So this top plate should slide easily, and it's not sliding. So let's see what is going on over here. And as you can see, it was glued with double-sided tape. So it's a pity because these are quite rare to find in a good condition. So we are missing 2 screws next to the chrome area, and it was glued as well with probably super glue. Let's then remove all the screws from the top of the console to open it up. So to open it, we lift the top cover on the back towards us. As you can see, this is a translucid model. It is quite rare, so it's a pity to be in this shape. Inside it looks okay. Probably whoever opened it cleaned it. Let's just remove the drive and the power supply so we can access the rest of the materials. So we removed 2 screws. There are a lot of screws missing as far as I can tell. This power supply should have around 6, it has 2. Here we remove this ribbon cable that connects the memory card reader. This is the Bluetooth antenna or Wi-Fi antenna, not quite sure. And we remove the Bluetooth Wi-Fi model over here by removing these 4 screws and the little flex cable. And we remove the little board that turns the console on and off. And now we will take all the screws from the top plate in order to access the motherboard. We will now take off the clamps for the processor and the APU. And now we will remove this sandwich from the chassis of the console. And we will have to remove now this plastic bit on the back that connects both the motherboard and the fan, and also the power switch. So now we will take out this small screw and lift up this plate, and now we will see what's the issue with this motherboard. The little bracket that holds the flex cable for the Blu-ray reader is snapped. So if we manage to fix this console, we need to take a look at that. So at the first glance, I don't see anything that might be broken. We have a small seal with a date. This is probably when someone opened it to fix it. We have some flux that might be from the factory. Other than that, I don't see anything really suspicious around here. We still have these little things on the chips for the heat spreaders. Let's now try to remove the bottom part. This bottom part has the fan and the battery connected. We need to remove them. So we disconnect both the battery and the fan. and now we will need to remove these. Let's save this for later, otherwise we can lose it. So the fan is detached. This thermal paste is actually still okay, so probably someone who opened it tried to change the thermal paste to see if it would sort out the issue with this console, which clearly didn't, and put it for sale so another idiot could buy it, which I did. Let's remove these two small screws from this chassis and then we can split it from the motherboard. So let's put this aside and have a look at what we have over here. I can't see anything that is really obvious. So as this is an issue with no picture, let's try to see around the HDMI area. So the HDMI encoder should be under this thermal pad, and it is. So let's take this off and check this area for any shorts. So now with the ground spot, let's go with the red probe through all the capacitors and see if we find shorts. So we have one right here, another one here, another one here, another one here. So they're all shorted. It's either the chip is bad or this is normal. These resistors are okay. This is odd. So let's turn the board around and check next to the chip if we find anything. So over here we have resistors and filters. So this won't tell me much, I believe. So we have a bunch of resistors here. They have ground on one side, on the other it does not. Or these are capacitors, I'm not sure, to be honest. I know that these ones in front are filters. Probably the others are resistors to keep the current steady. Over here we have a capacitor which has short on one side and the other one doesn't. So it's normal. Let's see if we have a short on it. It does not. So let's see on the other side, do some ohms readings on the capacitors and see if any of them are in a straight line. So this one's okay, this one okay, 24 ohms, this one also okay, also okay. So I don't think there is a problem with the capacitors. Maybe it's the chip. So let's compare the values on the board that I have for parts, which is this one here. So let's see. We have short, we have short. Yeah, it's the same as the other. Short, short. So it's quite the same. So this should be a normal thing. All of them are connected to ground apparently. So probably the chip doesn't have an issue. So I know that this board was working because I did the delete and ruined it. So it should not be a problem on the chip. But let's compare the values on both boards and see what we can come up with. So let's now do some ohms readings on both boards and see if we have the same amounts on each of the caps. So this is 24. The same one on the other board is 24. 24. This is not correct. There you go, 23.5, so 24. And this one, 24, 25, 24.5, and 24. So yeah, it's all the same. All is exactly the same. So the other thing that we can do is do a reading on the syscon and see what we can take from there. So let's quit this measurement and do that. So let's then connect our little drive to the syscon chip and see what codes we can read from there. So firstly, we need to put some flux on these three little dots of solder. Let's clean the area because it's a bit dusty. And now after dry, we do use the flux. This model, it takes the COK002 takes only 2 soldering spots on this chip, which is the RX and the TX. The diag, it's not necessary, although I have put some flux on that diag blob, but it will not be necessary. So I'm doing now the RX and the TX. This should be the diag. The diag usually has to be connected to a ground on the board, but in this case it will not be necessary, at least not on this model. So let's come up with the wires to connect them to these soldering spots. So here with the connected cables, I also have connected a cable on the ground over there, as you can see, so that it does a reading. So we will need always to check which COM port are we using. It's COM3, and then we will start the authorization process to get the codes. So the authorization was successful. Let's go ahead and get the error codes. So this will do the 20 last error codes that the console provided upon booting, and we will need to wait a little bit for it to grab them all. So I believe this was frozen. I had to restart, and this is the part where we are almost at the end of grabbing all the codes. Once it does, it generates a little notepad with all the codes that the console has provided. So the code that we are interested in is on these last 4 digits. It's 1001. This code means that probably it's an issue with the NEC tokens. If it is, it will be a very easy fix. Hopefully we will get this up and running. So let's now remove the little device from the board and attach some tantalum capacitors next to the NEC tokens to see if we can boot the console up. Just to test this error code 1001, I will not remove the NEC tokens because this is a bit of work to be done. So I'll just add a tantalum capacitor on this area on both sides to see if we still have that same code after we install it, because this will provide enough current for the chip to be restarted. So let's go ahead and do that. We will scrape these two areas and then we will solder the tantalum capacitor on it. So with the tantalum capacitor already in place, let's now see what happens when we press this button. We have a yellow light of death. Oh god. So let's do another reading on the syscon. Let's try it one more time. Definitely yellow light of death. So it probably went through, the current went through the capacitors, reached the chip, and now it's probably reading another code. So here we are again. So I have already connected the device to the motherboard and to the computer, and now we will check again for errors to see what is going on with this console. So let's go ahead and authorize ourselves into the chip, and we have a successful authorization. Let's then get the codes. So it successfully completed the error list, so 2102, 1200 and 1001. So as far as I read, 2102 is related to a chip IC6301. If we replace it normally, this will clear this error. 1200 is regarding overheating, maybe because I removed the thermal paste and turned it on. 1001 is usually related to neck token issues. So I will go through all of them, starting by 2102. I will see where I can find this chip, and 1200 will probably clear after we restart it, and then we'll check the 1001. So this is the schematic for this board, and the IC6301 is located over on this area here where I have the mouse, and this is the chip itself. So we are going to find that on the board and replace it with our from the parts board. So this is the one, 6301. It's next to the fuse with the same number, so easy to find if you search for it. So let's take care of it and remove this that is supposedly dead and put a new one in place. We start by adding flux. And we come in with the heat at around 390 degrees Celsius with the 100% speed of the air. So we will now remove the chip from the board for parts, which is this one. We do exactly the same as we did before. Now we will put a little bit of leaded solder on the pins. We will add a bit of flux and go through with our iron with solder on it. After this, we will go ahead with the braid and clean all the pads to then re-put solder on it, so we can then attach our new chip onto this console. So let's flux the area again, and with the soldering iron with a bit of solder, leaded solder on the tip, we will go through each of the pads. This will be now the chip that we removed from the other board. Let's heat up this area a little bit, and now we put the chip in place and heat it until it's solid on its place. So I have checked on the microscope and we have no bridges and the chip is well attached, so let's go ahead and test to see what happens now. Unfortunately, it's exactly the same, so let's just show you here and bring the board back to our blue mat. Back on the blue mat, I will solder all the wires back up to the console, and then we will rerun the errors to see what is going on now. So this will be the ground that we need to connect to the device. And we will do the same for the RX and TX spots on the board, each with its own cable. With the connections done, let's put some power into the console by turning on the switch. And with the switch on, we have the standby light. We have the device connected now with a little cable. And we'll go back to COM number 3, which is where this serial port is, and authorize ourselves into the console. Response invalid. This is normal. Sometimes it generates errors and does not allow us to go into the chip. So when this happens, usually restarting the software will be enough. If not, switch the connections on the serial device. So let's do that again. Power again into the console. Connections are done. Let's now authorize ourselves again. Unicode error. It will mean that we need to close this and open it up again. It takes a while to sometimes connect this properly. There we go. So COM number 3. Let's go in and authorize ourselves. And we are successful. Let's now get the error codes. So we have now the 20 codes. It is complete. Let's see what we have now. So we have 3034, 4002 and 2120. 3034 and 4002 together are a death sentence to the console. So unless you have very good equipment to change the chip, it will not be fixable, unfortunately. So we will have to go to the next console, and this unfortunately will be doomed as a parts console. So let's see on the other console if we have more success on fixing it. This is now the PlayStation number 2. So this console was the one that was not accepting discs, and when it accepted discs, only read them if we turned it off and back on again. So what we will start by doing is removing the hard drive. Just take this little lid off. As you can see, this lid is also translucent, so this model of console, the plastics are black but all translucent. This HDD screw is very tight, so I need to do a little bit of brute force in order to remove it. It means that it was not removed for quite a long time, or never at all. It had some marks left by the tool, and we remove the hard drive, which is a 60 gigabyte, as this model was on launch. So a little trick to remove these warranty stickers without having the void word leaving left behind. We heat it up at around 100 degrees with our heat gun, and with a sharp blade we start picking the corners and lifting it up slowly and very gently until it unglues it and removes without leaving a mark that we have been on the console. To remove this little rubber pad, we use this tweezer and shake it until we have it lift off, because this may be brittle due to the age. This is not the case, but sometimes happens. To remove this security Torx screw, I'm using a plier and the tip, because with the screwdriver itself it could not reach the screw, so this is a made-up solution I did to take it off. We will now remove the top cover to see what is under it. Well, it doesn't look that bad. It looks almost brand new, to be honest. Let's hope the insides is also like that. Let's now remove the 10 Phillips screws. With the Phillips screws removed, let's press the clip on the back and pull the cover towards us to take it off. As you can see, the cover is also translucent. We have this flex cable connected to the memory card slots. We need to be aware of that so we don't pull it out on brute force and rip it off. So careful with that. Let's just disconnect this flex cable. We will now check what is going on with our Blu-ray reader. First things first, we need to take it off its place, but gently, because there is a ribbon cable under it and we don't want to break it or break any of the connectors because they are super rare at this point. So let's remove the power in, which is this small connector over here, and remove the flex cable from the connector on the board. There is a little bit of liquid which I'm not sure where it came from, but let's clean it with our cotton swab. And now we remove this flex cable so we don't break it or do any harm to it, and take off the 5 Phillips screws that hold the cover in place. To remove the cover, we lift it from the back and pull it out, and like that we reveal the interior of this drive. These are the plastic mechanisms that open up when we insert a disc, and this here is the little magnet that holds the disc in place when it's inside and spinning. So now let's remove the screws that hold this cover in place. To lift it, we just pull it to the side to avoid damaging the little wire that goes under the drive. So, as far as I can see, I don't see anything, because I was expecting to see some sort of sensor where the disc hits. So firstly, let's do the basics and clean the lens with our cotton swab. First the dry to remove any dust, and then we wet it a little bit with IPA to remove any stains that might happen to be on top of it. Also very gently, because this is super fragile. Since we are inside, we are also cleaning the area, which is surprisingly not dirty at all. There's a little bit of dust and that's it. which is surprising for a console this age that has never been opened. So let's now mount the drive back in place and do the test to see if this cleaning was worth it or not. So we need to put the flex cable back on the connector. When you do this, make sure that it is connected all the way to the end, because if it's not, it will not detect the Bluray drive on the console. So with the console plugged on the TV, let's see if we manage to have it reading discs again. As you could see, I turned it on with the controller, and the drive is starting to do some strange noises, and I can see the lens moving a little bit, like if she's trying to detect a disc, as you can see over here. It's going back and forth. This is usually when a disc is in, it tries to recognize the format to start reading the disc. So definitely it's not fixed, but let's try to put a disc in it anyway and see what happens. Unfortunately, nothing that I've tried has worked, so we will need to bring it back to our blue mat and try to sort out why is it not working as it should. So let's see if we can spot here any kind of switches that may detect the presence of the disk. The only one I can see is the one that the laser is touching, which I believe tells the board that the laser is on the end of its course to stop it from running towards the spindle. Other than that, I don't see any possible area where the disk may be identified by this drive. Usually on other consoles, other PlayStations even, there are sensors that detect when the disk is present, when the disk is coming out, and here the only thing I can see is these plastics that move when the disk goes in and out. So with our multimeter, let's do a continuity test on this switch that we can see to see if it's working. It should be, because the laser stops when it hits that area, as you could see on the when it was connected to the TV. So basically we put the two prongs on the connections of the switch and press the switch to see if it beeps. If it beeps, it's working fine. Apparently the button is working flawlessly. So this is definitely not the problem. Over here it's just a little plastic that looks like a switch, but it's not. It's just a plastic bit, probably for the rollers to hit it. So honestly, I don't see anything obvious here. So with the drive on the console, with the console connected, let's do a quick test with the disc. This is a PlayStation 4 disc, I'm aware of it, but it's just for testing, as this disc is damaged and doesn't no longer work. So just to see, I believe this little board on top should be the sensor that detects the disc when it enters the slot, and probably it's not working. I don't know, but probably it's that. So when the disc goes in, it pulls these two little rollers to the side, and I assume when that little sensor detects the entry of the disc, it starts moving the little engines and allows the disc to roll in with these side rollers that it has over here. So probably it will be that sensor that is not working, but let's do a few more tests and see if we can figure something out. So these are the rollers that need to open, but they lock up when they reach this point and the disc won't come in. So this is most likely not the issue, because they should go all the way out when the disc is detected. So let's use our parts console and just replace this top cover. I will just replace the top cover because I don't want to risk breaking the wire on this little sensor, because they are very thin and I may break them when pulling them off from their where they are placed. So now I will take this cover from the broken console and put it on this console. And I will now put the drive back in place to do the test. And obviously something had to happen. This is never easy. The little blue plastic that holds the flex cable in place just fell off. And without it we cannot connect the Blu-ray. So since we are here, I will show you what to do if this happens to you when you are doing a refurbishment, just like I am trying to do here. So if you have those stickers, double-sided stickers that are used to put screens back in place on cell phones, on tablets, etc., you can use it. So basically you just grab this plastic and put it on the limit of this double-sided tape and glue it on top, and then just cut the excess on the other side. Make sure to cut it very close to the edge, because we don't want remains of glue inside the connector. So when doing this, also make sure to put it on the edges on both sides because of the glue. So we now remove the paper on top of this double-sided tape. When we glue it to the flex cable, it has to be exactly where it was before, because if it's a little bit sideways, then the flex cable won't go into the connector. Or if it's a little crooked, then it does not do a proper connection on the pins. So if you do this, make sure to put it on the exact same place where it left. And when you put it back in, it will feel a bit tighter because this glue is a little larger than the original glue that was in it. But it should last. So with this bonus fix done, let's test and see if something happens now, which it does not. I'm starting to lose my hopes on this, because if it was the sensor, it should now turn the console on and accept the disk. And it's not happening. Wait, it turned on, and the blue light is blinking as if it was detecting a disk inside. And no, still nothing is happening. Well, apparently the connections inside on the plastics were not correct, and when it did these clicks, it went to place and the disk got inside, but it's not coming up or reading. Well, but it's throwing it out. Let's try to see if something happens now. I will just tighten the screws, because it didn't have any screws, because I was just testing it. So let's tighten it up to see if that helps in any way. Well, apparently it helped. Let's see if the disk now will spin. Well, nothing is happening. I believe probably something is off its place when I tightened it up. Maybe the disk needs to be out and the parts on top need to be on a specific position when this happens. So I believe the plastic parts are now in place. Let's do a bit of pressure here on the board because it has no screws and see. Well, the disc now came up and it's spinning. We have a spin. Alright, so probably it's fixed. We obviously need to put another disc here because this won't be reading as it's a PS4 disc. Let's just take it out. It came out very well. So now with the PS3 disc, let's see if it accepts the disc and starts spinning normally. It should, because it did with the last one. And yes, it looks like it's everything okay. It's doing the correct sound, so most likely was this little sensor that was not working as it should. Let's place it back inside. And yes, it's still spinning. So I believe we have a fix. Since we're at it, let's do a test with the PlayStation 2 disc and see if it reads. It looks like it's okay, so it's doing all the sounds it needs to do. So let's do a test on the TV and see what happens. Let's then test the God of War 2 PlayStation 2 disc and see if it shows up on the TV. It's starting up. Let's see if it shows up. And there it is. So let's run it. It needs a new memory card. Let's create that really quickly and run the game and see if we manage to play a little bit. So the game is on. Let's kill a few guys over here and test to see if the console responds well. It feels a bit laggy, but it's okay. Let's try a PlayStation 3 to see what comes up. So yeah, it's working as it should. I'm not going to play this game, but we can see that it's running. As we are testing, let's try a PlayStation 1 game, why not, and see if it plays the game. And that's all. This console version still has the PlayStation Home app, which was sort of a Sims game inside PlayStation 3 servers, and there are some guys that are trying to bring it back. So if you have a PlayStation with this app, it's possible to take the files from it and upload them to help them out recreate this world. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, do a subscription on the channel. I'll try to upload more videos as soon as I'm going to fix more stuff. So I will see you again on the next video. Hope you enjoy it. Have a great week.